Alrighty. I gotta pop my chat out, and I think we're ready to go. Hey, Brian. Hopefully you can hear me. Almost. Perfect. All right. Hey guys, how are you doing today? I don't have any of the cool stuff I was supposed to have for today's stream, so I could actually be doing like building things. So I had to improvise. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. It's last sec. We're over the time where we have to start. And I thought, why not share the design evolution of the Mini to see how I got from A to point B over a course of many, many years. This is not going to be a topic of history. I believe that deserves a real video or an article or something because there's too much information and drama and it's a really good story. But this is mostly just about design changes or just to give you a little, I guess, look at the evolution of the Mini. And just to chill out because I don't really have anything prepared. I actually just went into my garage and I tried to grab every little part and piece of different pieces of Minis over the time of history. Starting off, I also wanted to ask you guys what your opinion was, especially you early guys. I'm trying to get the lighting right, and I'm thinking that I like backlighting. I got this blue backlighting. I think it kind of makes me pop from the video, but I wanted to get y'all's opinion on it. So here's what it looks like with the backlighting, the blue lighting, and this is with it off. I think I like the blue lighting, but I just wanted to double check with you guys because this is a process like anything else. And with that, I will begin. So I started off working for a company or working with a company called Paladin. And this was a very, very long time ago. Again, not any history. I don't want to get into history. But the idea with Paladin was I was going to be providing a lot of the technology and the design behind the products. We were kind of feeling our way through. It was a company that worked on software for live streaming, stuff like that. We're like, hey, why not do some hardware? This was back when New Tech was the only company doing this, and live streaming was such a baby that no one thought it was going to be like what it is today. And I think the first iteration of the product that was actually a mini, because there were lots of different custom-built computers, obviously, during that time, some small, some bigger, was this guy right here. And this is some Antec chassis. Maybe you guys recognize it. I don't know. But this was the very, very first thing that kind of got me started on the path. And it's just an off-the-shelf computer case. It's really gross because it was the first time I powder-coated anything. It's actually disgustingly bad and very dirty from being in my garage. And the only real technology that this had in it, when I say technology, I just mean stuff I added, was the power supply was slightly modded. This was the first foray I had into undervolting by necessity, and I kind of made my own wire set and harness and broke other cables out. Now, the reason I need this computer case was because these were live streaming boxes / encoders, and they needed capture cards. Again, this was kind of a new thing, so we had to use a half-height capture card that was a custom-made capture card and get it all to work. So this is where I started off, and I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. There's got to be a better way of doing this, though, instead of buying an off-the-shelf case from Newegg. And thank you, Robert Brown, for naming the model of this little guy. This thing is super duper heavy. I guess I'll put this here. Arrange them in order, maybe. And then the second iteration was a computer case. This is kind of the thing that you buy when you go to China and you're like, I need a computer case. I don't think you can buy this in stores or anything like that, but you probably could find it now on Ali. Not this particular model, but this kind of thing. And it was kind of where, okay, how do we get this shrunken down? And this one's not modded too much, but with the prototypes that we built, or I built, again, this is when I was first starting, so, I mean, these are all really rough. I would chop out the back portion right here, and we had another capture card that I kind of hacked and made it with breakout cables. We asked the manufacturer to include that kind of I/O for it. So then we'd have our singular HDMI output here. It wasn't even HDMI. It was actually some type of. It was Firewire. That's what it was. Firewire. Yeah, ridiculous. I know, right? But cameras, that's what you used to get video out of them, was Firewire back in the day. This is a long time ago. And this actually did have a custom power supply. It wasn't developed by us. It was some company that was making DC power supplies, really tiny DC power supplies. It's actually inside of here, and if I open this up, which I'm going to show you guys, this is kind of what gave me that idea that, hey, look, we can have these breakout power supplies where we can remove the brick from the chassis and we can get it to be a lot smaller. So I thought that was really clever. It was when I first discovered it, these things. Here we go. It's just some, typical DC power board that you find everywhere now. And I don't really know what the wattage is on this, but we made a deal with the manufacturer to have them source it for us so we could buy the case with it all together. So that was the second iteration of the Mini. Thank you, Cirrus, for your opinion on the blue backlighting. So guys, if you want to comment on that, I'm really trying to figure out if I like the backlighting or not. Some people have commented and given me some, I don't know what you'd say, feedback that they don't like the backlighting. But I think it just makes it better. So I want to know what the general consensus is. I'm told that stream is not a quality content. And if you don't like the content I'm talking about today, I can't really do anything about it. So, just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. So I guess you can watch something else. And I'm sorry about it, and I'll try to make cooler stuff next time. So the next iteration of the Mini was this guy. Same kind of concept as before. Have a DC power supply going into this box, or AC-DC converter going into a DC power supply into the box. And this is another kind of sort of off-the-shelf case that you have to go find a manufacturer that makes these things and order a couple of them. And it uses a different type of power supply, but same kind of thing. And it was at this point that I was like, you know what? I like computer modding. I just kind of got into it myself, going to PDX land. I was like, why can't we make our own computer case? I think that would be kind of cool. And I thought about it like what we needed to build and what we didn't need to build. And I went through a lot of different designs, but I wasn't really passionate about it because I wasn't making computer cases for gaming. And the technology here was still so crappy, sorry my language, that it just wasn't interesting to me. Live streaming wasn't a thing. We were before it was cool, so it wasn't cool to do live streaming. I cared nothing about making video. But I had this epiphany that I could make a computer case and incorporate that into my modding and make it like a console computer game case, which is something I've always wanted to do because I really liked playing console games with my friends. I liked going to LAN parties. I've been going to LAN parties for probably 5 years before this at this point. So I was like, okay, what do we need? We need a real good DC power supply. We need a graphics card that's actually not garbage, but also small and not super high wattage. And we need a computer case that can lay them out in such a way that it's not really big and chunky. So that led to a lot of different things. The first was actually trying to get the ribbon cable made, because there was no PCIe 16x ribbon cables back then, and any ones that were actually going to work well. And I needed to get a an actual really good DC-DC distributor power supply made. And Minibox was around at this time, but they had their very first version of their Pico power supply, which just wasn't good for us. But we called them up and we talked about a contract that we had with this cable company, and we kind of got them working on it. They really drug their feet on it. They're like, why would you ever want to put a graphics card and power it off a tiny power supply? They just were not playing ball with us. But we eventually did get a version of their early Pico that allowed you to get a form factor like this. And this is starting to look a lot more familiar. This is the design that incorporates the DC-DC power supply, the ribbon cable with the graphics card pointed up, and the slots on the back. And this was the first computer case of its kind, and we decided to get it patented at the time. That's a story for another day. And here we are. This is the real first version of the Mini. And this layout would spawn, a dozen layouts from me, and now it's kind of a popular layout. So this was the very first one. I built this out of steel, and it's pretty much hand fabricated, and it's really gross. I have a lot of these in a box in my garage. They're all rusting up. But we now had the components. The hardware wasn't really a thing yet. It wasn't working like you'd want it to work, but at least the computer case and the idea was in place. And then, after much work, and several prototypes later, we have the S3, the S3 Mini. And you can see where this is. I just had to random pieces in my garage. This is version 1 of the S3 Mini. It's not the very first one, but it's one of the earlier ones. And the S3 Mini was really slim. It was as slim as this S1, if you want to call it that, and it was made out of aluminum. And this thing is so slim that the rear I/O plate is actually, that you get with the motherboard, is actually bigger than the chassis. So we had to use obviously a 1U power supply, like a Dynatron, 1U heatsink, like a Dynatron. And the graphics card, there weren't a lot at this time, but they were just starting to come out where you'd get graphics cards that weren't absolutely abysmal, but low wattage enough to run off the Pico 150, which was coming out about this time. And we actually made maybe about 10 of these, and that was a big deal for us, and sold 10 of these streaming systems with version 1. And our company was starting to kind of grow, and we're like, this is really cool. So what are the problems with this computer case, and how do we fix them? Well, a big problem with the computer case was actually, I have one right here. This is revision 7 of the Paladin, but it's only like revision 3 of the chassis. But it'll work. So with the first edition, it was actually so slim that, one, it was kind of a pain because it was hard to fit a lot of different motherboards in the back. You had only a couple motherboards which would actually fit. And 2, you can see here, I had to create a notch for when the Pico 160 eventually was made. Minibox said that, okay, yeah, we are going to make it. You guys have proven it to us. We'll make the 160 XT. And they bundled it with a really good brick, the Adaptec 192 watt brick. And that was a glorious combination that actually made this computer system work. And then when that happened, my eyes were opened. I was like, okay, everyone's been making fun of me so far about these stupid tiny router boxes. They don't really make much sense. But now finally we can have a graphics card in it, like, I don't want to name the graphics card to get the timeline right, but we can get a graphics card that can play games at 1080p on low settings and have a really tiny portable system. We made it a little bit thicker, so I could actually have the 160 XT fine, and the I/O plate was increased, so you could have a lot of different motherboards. Didn't get it perfect, as you see. I had to actually mod this one for this particular Asus. you could mount the DC jack, well, here on the motherboard because it's a thin mini ITX, through the custom I/O plate, or you could mount it to the chassis in the middle here. I'll take a break for a second. Dan Dark Mass says Pico power supply 160 XT work with a 1050 Ti plus Xeon 1245 version 3. Yes, absolutely. The kit will power that no problem whatsoever, and it's a great option. It's super cheap. It's like $79, and you get a great power brick and a great DC-DC distributor. Hi, Nick. How you doing, man? Andreas Sass says, what years are we talking about? And I don't want to give out years because I'm a disorganized person, and I'd rather do a proper history because there's a lot of drama in the history and it's a lot of fun. This is mostly just about what the changes were. But I will say that the end of the S3 was where you had like the Radeon 260, which I think it was a decent graphics card. It was small, it didn't require a lot of power, and it could pack enough of a punch for the system to actually make sense. So after the S3, which I made a good handful amount, because, like I said, the other company got a pretty decent order, so I was able to design this chassis and make a pretty decent amount of them. When I say decent amount, I mean like maybe we made 250 total, but we were also bundling with systems. And I was like, okay, well, what if I wanted to make a computer case that solved all of my problems, and I was making it for me and not for this company? And I said, okay, what would it look like? And I spent a year doing it. I talked to a lot of different engineers on how to make it perfect. I looked at everything from the cutouts and how they would impact things, and tried to find customers that would want to be purchasing them, like business clients, and say, what do you need in it? Not that I was ever going to sell it to them, but some people were like, well, it needs to be able to pass FCC with computer components installed, that kind of thing. And we finished with the S4. The S4 Mini. This is my S4 Mini that I'm saving for a rainy day. And the big differences between the S3 and the S4 are twofold. One, the S3 has the graphics card pointed upward, and you have a ribbon cable that wraps around it in order to do that. Number two, you can actually have a motherboard I/O backplate here, so that makes it, sellable to people that want to buy it as a computer case. They don't have to get a custom backplate or I/O plate made. So those are the two big differences between the two. In addition, the sky slots were very expensive to engineer. They're not just holes punched in the side like my S3 kind of was. And these do a lot of different things. They actually minimize noise, electrical noise, because of the shape of the circles and how far the ends of the circles are from each other. I don't understand that, okay? I'm not an engineer. That's all voodoo math to me, but apparently it's a thing. And they did a great job. We had, trying to think of the company that did this. They're based in Redmond, Washington. Cascade Engineering. One of the chief operating officer was best friends with one of the long-term engineers there, so they were able to help us out because our company would have never been able to afford that. So we actually got the Paladin FCC tested in this, and it passed. So that was really, really cool. The sky slots, which is what I call these vents, vent so well that even though I originally intended this to power like a 100 watt graphics card at the most, like I thought that would be overheating, you can stuff a 1080 Ti in them, which is really, really impressive. There's some other design elements. There's a lot of different design elements that go into the Mini as far as how it looks, but that's kind of more subjective. And readily, I don't mean electrical noise, like coil whine. I don't mean like physical noise. I mean like emissions, like emissions that you can't see as a human or hear as a human, but it affects other electrical issues, the frequency, stuff like that. I don't understand most of it. I just was so happy when we did our second test and paid our $10,000 and it passed. this is a great point to talk about these two differences. Dan asks, what made you change the GPU orientation? I do believe in this orientation. It's good. That's why we invested in the patent for it, to protect other people from making it and telling us that we couldn't. But there's just some benefits that you get from doing it the way the S4 did, and now the S4M. The big thing is with the S4M, you get way more sides available to vent the graphics card. With the S3, you have the ribbon cable coming underneath your graphics card, so you're basically blocking off an entire side from ventilation, no matter what you do make for the slots and all that. Having a shorter ribbon cable also reduces latency, so that's kind of another factor. It doesn't matter so much, to be honest, and with modern GPUs, it just doesn't matter. Your link speed just doesn't really make much of a difference, but it's still a consideration. It also made the cables last a lot longer if they need to be shorter. But the main thing, again, was ventilation. You get superior ventilation doing it like the S4. The only downside is that, I'm sorry, if you have the S3 in the horizontal position, then I think it becomes maybe worth it to have the GPU in this orientation. But of course, if you move to a vertical orientation, you lose that ability, and you get twice the ventilation for this design in the vertical format. So that's the big reason. I think I would still bring back the Mini and do a reversible. I'm already working on the patent for it, and I can disclose that because it's already patent pending, but a reversible graphics card mount. But it works out best the way the S4 is, which is why I've continued to do it today. Okie dokie. Now, moving on. Oh man, I totally messed up. How could I forget? So I told you I was disorganized. So between this Mini and this Mini, there was another Mini. And it's best to look at pictures on my website, nfc-systems.com, and you'll see it there. It was the S3 Elite. And the S3 Elite basically took the layout of the S3, but I wanted kind of more of, as you can see, the design of the S4. And this had a stand involved. It was nice and roomy. You could put bigger graphics card in it. And it had this really beautiful CNC'd aluminum bezel, which was a fortune to make. And as you can see too, it had provisions for an optical drive, which I eventually decided not to include in the S4, which bothers some people, but you have to make decisions on what you're gonna try to support and try to move away from. But that was the S3 Elite. And the big problems with the S3 Elite was it's super expensive to make. We originally wanted to have this mesh TIG welded in, but even with TIG welding, it was really difficult to do that, so it was expensive. It was too complicated to put together. We actually have a patent on how this thing folds and clips together and clips the graphics card to it. And I think there could be some use for that in other computer cases. But it just was kind of more complicated than it needed to be, I guess. Why reinvent the wheel? So I moved away from that design and went to the S4. And the S4 is my baby. And when I was doing this, I was not doing this because I wanted to sell a computer case or because I wanted to make money or have this be part of my business. At this point, I was pretty much separating myself from this startup for various reasons. And I just kind of wanted to do this for me. I wanted to bring this product to manufacture. And I didn't just want to make one. I wanted to prove that I could make something good and deliver a good amount of them to different people that were interested in it. And I invested pretty much my own money. I had help from my business partner here who was going to buy them to use for the systems we were building. And I had no idea if I was going to sell 10 of them, to be honest. But I ended up selling all the stock over a couple years, very slowly. It was a very slow process, a very scary process. But I really love this computer case. And I would still keep making it today, but there were just so many conveniences that my customers asked for and were already implementing that I decided that, one, I love this thing, so let's make it a limited edition. and 2, let's make all that quality of life improvements that my customers were asking for. And I made a really long video on the differences between these two, which is much better to watch because it's actually produced quite well. Is that Chad up there that sent me all that money? I can see your face, but I can't see your icon. Hey, Chad. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your support over the years. So, of course, today we have the S4. And like I said, I don't want to make a video or talk about that this minute because I've already made a video comparing these two. And actually comparing these two, but this just has a lot of quality of life features. It's much easier to put together than the S4 build. So first-time users, which were a lot of my customers who had never built a computer before, and this just makes it super easy. There's not really any modding you have to do. You can just throw your systems together. And for the modders who are really good and do want to like push the envelope, this gives them way more opportunity to stick in bigger power supplies and do really crazy stuff like liquid cooling and brickless 1080 builds, even 1080 Ti build in the works from some of my customers. So I think it all worked out in the end. So that's kind of the history of, or the design evolution between them. And I figured I'd just cover it fast, and if people had more detailed questions, they could ask. TK Kuro says, Josh, would you ever consider, I keep forgetting my mic's right here, I'm really sorry. Josh, would you ever consider making a new case line with 3D printed frame? If so, what components would you like to support in it? I continuously look into creating 3D printed cases or parts that allow people to make their own computer cases just using their panels. 3D printing just isn't there yet, in my opinion. There's somebody that's actually took the Mini layout and a lot of the Mini design features and my Mini customers and is trying to sell to my customers on in my channel with a 3D printed case. And it bums me out for lots of different reasons, obvious reasons, but the non-obvious reason is he doesn't actually put pictures of the computer case. And when I actually source one of the computer cases, it looks really poor. You know, you can't just show renders and have it print out well. And for me, the reason I made this computer case was because I thought all this was crap. It's all garbage. It's made out of really cheap, flimsy steel or really badly bent aluminum. And I wanted something that was luxurious. I wanted something that was Lee & Lee quality, but built like a brick. Because Lee & Lee cases, they are amazingly finished, amazing design. They look awesome. They're very, very high quality. But this is a solid brick of metal. You could run this over in your car and you would scratch it up for sure, but it would still be a computer case when you were done with it. So that was kind of my goal. I just wanted to build what I thought was the perfect computer case for me. I'm not saying it's the perfect computer case. But I made something I was proud of. I'm not gonna mention the name of any competitors that I'm bashing. That would just be low class. I'm kind of remiss that I even brought it up anyway, but I don't think 3D printing is there yet for computer cases. Captain Veyron said, ever do a clear one? You know, I actually have made parts and pieces that were clear for Mini. It's hard to make the whole thing true once it's all said and done. I have designs that I want to make open source. I should, so you can go get your own panels laser cut out and bend them yourself. I actually have that, so you can just email me if you want it. So it can look cool. The problem, of course, with any clear cases is that you get dust on clear panels, glass or cell class acrylic, and that just looks bad after about 14 seconds. Humanly Robotic asks, Josh, did you ever consider putting the GPU on a longer riser and flipping it so both fans are on the same side? I'd buy that for sure. Yep, I have the patent for that, and that is the S3 Mini. But as I just discussed, there are drawbacks to this design, and I think the S4 improves on it overall. This is still superior if you were going to lay it in the horizontal fashion, but very, very minor amounts. So at the end of the day, fans do all the work. You know, they're pushing the hot air out of the computer case. So as long as you can vent from the front and the back and suck air from the top and a little bit from the sides, you're pretty much good. So that's kind of the reason that I moved to the S4. Brian Zeus says, speaking for panels, do you have the exact panel CAD for the S4M? I tried cutting it by hand, but I can't accomplish the precision that a CNC machine can do. And the answer to that is sort of. I do have the CAD, and of course, Brian, we're working together on several projects. I'm happy to share it with you, but it's actual DXF CAD that the manufacturer gave me. Whenever you make a design and you CAD it out and it's all you think it's ready to manufacture, you're wrong, because individual manufacturers have to tweak things for their machines so it's easier to load, it's easier to set up, and they're going to make minor adjustments and then check it over with you to see if it's okay. So some things like the sky slots just had to be changed a little teeny tiny bit for the manufacturer to make it done. So if I gave you my CAD, it wouldn't work. You'd probably be worse off than you are now. And if I give you the DXF that the manufacturer used, I don't know if it would work or line up. So that's halfway there. Siegfried asks, any chance for that S3 or S4 with support for an optical drive? It is built into the S4M. And I'm excited to meet you guys halfway, you optical drive lovers. This will support a optical drive. The cutout in the front will support the length of an optical drive. You can use a full-sized optical drive, not a slim one, if you would really, really like to, like an APU system. All you gotta do is make a mount for it, which you can easily 3D print attached to one of the sky slots, or just attach it to the front bezel. You have to make a cutout for the front bezel. The flat bezels are flat now and thin. That's the reason I went with the flat bezel, not this thick wraparound bezel, is they're easier to mod or make professional high quality stuff on a water jet or a laser or by hand at home. So this will fit a slim optical drive with a graphics card or a full-size optical drive with a APU. But you're crazy. Just get with the times, bro, and use like a network optical drive. Which is what I do. I have one, it's not network, it's actually USB, but it's on the hub down below, and if I need it, I just plug it into my hub. And it works a lot better than those slim ones. I have so many slim slot-loaded DVD drives, I'm happy to send one to anybody that wants to pay for shipping. Robert Brown asks, would you ever consider a future model to take an SFX power supply? No, I will never do that. I don't think I will ever do that. I've tried several times. I've had people ask me. I've had SFF Lab really ask me to do so. It was the first design I actually came up with ever, and I submitted that to Valve, and I guess they were working at the Steambox at the time, so they had pretty much the same thing. It's just that it's not me. I have no passion for it. I've actually was making a custom one for a customer last month out of carbon fiber, and it was the worst thing I've ever done. I was so... When you just have no passion for what you're making, you know, I can't stand the idea of it. I'm not saying you're wrong. That's not me. I really, really like tiny power supplies, and SFX is not tiny to me. Plus, Zaber Sentry, I mean, that computer case exists, so. Titanium Waffle asks, hello, I have been trying to build a PC in my car. I have GTX 1080 and AMD R7 2700X. Is this possible to get it working under 240 watts power draw? It's definitely possible. I think that 270 is much more realistic, but 240 is definitely possible. And I think you could definitely cool it. I think you could fit that PC in most glove boxes. Not a Jeep glove box, but most other glove boxes. Yes, Siegfried, you'd have to make your own front bezel. And I could probably help with that too if you wanted to hire me to do that. I just don't, again, I don't have passion for that. And, you know, making one of something is expensive. But yeah, Dan says, I find slim optical drives unreliable. They're terrible. That's the reason I decided, no, I'm not going to do that for the S3 Elite. Because every one that I bought eventually would break. So I didn't want to spend that money milling that slim slot out and then have problems. I'm not going to send you details. You can contact me. I'm sorry. I have to answer so many emails as it is, and you can see how scatterbrained I am. I'll forget, so. Tikuro says, an idea. Have you tried making a 3D printed adapter that reverses the direction of the PCIe bracket that goes between the card and the case? Would that help people for same direction cooling? That's another one of my patents. It's not 3D printable, but you could 3D print it, I suppose. But it's a flippable I/O bracket, so you can reverse it. There's a lot of challenges that go into that, though. One of the computer cases that's not here is the S5M, which I made before I made the S4M. And the S5M, I have one customer that sometimes watches this stream that has one, and another one of my friends that owns Dreamcore, which uses S4 and flippable graphics card. The problem with it is, and I can't go into so much detail here because it's actually very complicated, when you shift over a card, there's so much space that gets lost between that flip because of how the card's designed and where the motherboard is and where the key is, that you have to account for a lot of space. So it doesn't just stay in one position and rotate 180 degrees. It actually would move everything over either direction by a considerable amount. So to do it, you have to key the card in such a way, or not the card, the bracket in such a way that when you flip it, you're actually moving it up into the right or down into the left, so it stays in a relatively similar spot, which means you're gonna have to make the case a little bit thicker too. And the case ended up being too big for me and too heavy for me. So I decided to scratch that and go with the S4M. And I'm glad that I did that. Have you been able to get a hold of an Xbox X power supply to see how it would do? I haven't, but the Xbox 360 original power supply works amazing. In fact, the computer cases that are not here, but if you go to my website, mc-systems.com, you'll see cases in between here that are made out of acrylic. And they were my custom mods I made. And one of them actually used this Xbox 360 power adapter, which I soldered and attached this G16 plug at the end of it. And I had to do this back in the day because there wasn't good hardcore power bricks available like there are today. So this worked fantastic. I see no reason why you couldn't use a modern Xbox power brick. Sander McDonald, I really appreciate the tip, man. Thank you very much for supporting this stream. And he asks, will there be an S6M? And I really can't answer that. I have no idea. I'm making this as long as it's fun and interesting. It's already a big time sink and it doesn't make a lot of money. There's much more profitable things to do. So I have no idea. I really like the S4M, and I think there's so much potential for it because power supplies are getting smaller. There's more innovators in the power supply space. Graphics cards are getting much faster while retaining the same power envelope. I don't know if an S6M is necessary at this time, but maybe it will be. I do have ideas for them, but they don't really make sense. They just kind of go off in a even more niche tangent, and this is the balance between everyone's able to build in it and also in a weird niche. I don't know if that doesn't make any sense, but I don't know. We'll see. There is an S5M. If you want to see the S5M, you got to go to smallformfactor.net and search for it, I believe. I'll probably make a video soon now that I'm dead set on not making it. But everyone's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest idea ever. Because on paper, it's amazing. It really is amazing. It has a list a mile long of features, and it looks really sexy. It's just that the problem was it's just too big and too heavy for me. And it moved outside the realm of, I think that this accomplishes the important things and gets the form factor right. So if I did an S5M, it would be completely and totally crowdfunded, because I don't have the passion to bring it out. And that's dangerous. It's really dangerous to put a product out that people want, but you don't have a passion for. So. What's your thought on all the 1060s going for cheap, $150 on eBay? Would you recommend one, assuming that they're safe to buy? Yeah, man. $150 for a 1060 is a no-brainer. 1060 is an awesome card. It's better than what I have now in my current gaming PC, just because how things worked out. I love that card. 1060 is my favorite graphics card up to this point. And I'm really interested to see when a 2060 is going to look like, a small 2060. But for $150, wow, yeah, that's totally what I would do. In fact, I didn't know that they were going for so cheap on eBay, and I was about to buy a friend a 1050 Ti for about that, so thank you for that information. Brandon asks, I want a super small case for a Ryzen 2400G. I want something smaller than the S4 that doesn't have room for a graphics card. Where do you live, Brandon? Because I can just send you one for free. It's not really small when it comes to volume, but something like this. There's also, if you, no, let's see, you can't buy a thin mini. I didn't break it. There was another metal panel on the bottom of it, I promise. I wish that there were good thin mini for a Ryzen. That would be awesome because there's some really cool computer cases for thin mini. Silverstone makes a bomb thin mini ITX case, but unfortunately that form factor fell out of style. North Carolina, yeah, man, I'll send you one. Just email me your address. And Bellis says, yeah, I bought a 1060 6GB for 140 bucks on eBay. That is crazy. I don't care if they were mining on it. That is awesome. The Inwin Chopin, though, or Chopin, or whatever, is really big. Really big. It's a nice computer case, but it's a big computer case. Oh man, we got plenty of time, and I started late. Ugh. I could talk about this thing. It's kind of part of the mini history, but also not. It wasn't part of the evolution, but it was a computer case that I had in my lineup. But the idea behind this was it was one of the live stream boxes. It's thicker, as you could see, but it had these modular plates that could go on the top and bottom. Well, actually the top had the I/O, had belt straps, so you could like put it over your shoulder. And on the bottom was you could pop it out and you could put an Anton Bauer battery pack on the bottom. So you could actually have a battery-powered live streaming device that you could plug your camera into. But there's a lot of cool little features in there, a lot of modular plates and ideas for future products. It used thin mini though, and I didn't want to commit to it because I kind of saw the writing on the wall when it came to thin mini, which is such a shame. I love that form factor. Edward Christian Bales or Balas says, hey Josh, I see that you're using an Asus ROG Strix Z370i, a lot of them. And I missed the last of your comment, so I gotta scroll up. That's a good question. You want to know if you should use the top or the bottom slot. I always recommend the bottom slot in the Mini because the top slot is easier to get to because the Mini's cutout covers the bottom slot just a teeny tiny little bit. So if you put the first one in the bottom, that way if you want to add a second one later, it's much easier to do so. I also think that it has the potential of being the cooler of the two drives because the top, your CPU is just going to be blowing hot air over the one that has the supposed shared heatsink. It's also a really dumb design. I don't know how Asus, they market it as it's a dual isolated heatsink, which makes no sense. But the idea behind it is you have the North Bridge, which has a heatsink over it, and then it's somehow isolated from the top heatsink and the SSD. But really, they're not that isolated. So it ends up being you dumping heat from the CPU over onto it and then from the North Bridge. And NVMe drives can run really, really hot, and they're actually tuned to run hot, but that's a little too hot, maybe, possibly, depending on your computer case. Luna G asks, can we buy painted S4 minis? Man, I keep leaning in. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to adjust my microphone. I'm so sorry. You guys, can you please remind me when I start talking like this so I can actually talk here and you can hear me better? That would be awesome. Be like, Josh, your mic! But the Mini, I used to do full powder coating with. And when a customer would order an S4, they could just contact me and tell me, what do you want your powder coat to be? And I would take it to my friends at the powder coat shop, and they would get it powder coated, and it would be great, and everyone was happy. And I loved it so much because it was really not from concentrate. But unfortunately, that can't happen anymore, and I have no good source to get things powder coated. And I've had the last of my minis there for 2 years. And I really want to sell you guys some S4 Mini Classics, but they have them. This awesome, super sweet splatter silver, I think is what it's called, I don't know, frame and outer panel. But what I was going to say is the Mini, I got it done in silver, not black, because 1, silver doesn't show scratches, and 2, you can powder coat this super easy. So you can just take it to your local powder shop, and you can have them powder coat it, and then you don't have to pay me to drive all the way out to Kiln, Mississippi to have it powder coated and have them not do it for 2 years. So that's the short answer. Nathan asks, how much does it cost to powder coat? And that is the most varying number you probably could ever ask. It depends on the type of powder that you get, how many stages that powder requires, their shop, where you are in the United States or elsewhere in the world, what kind of equipment do they have. You can pay, I've seen people pay like $40 to paint a Mini, and it looked like a $40 paint job. And, you know, I charged like $100 to $250 depending on how, again, all those different factors. So it really depends for sure. I'm sorry, Luna. I'm not really salty. I apologize, though, if I came off like that. So, you're awesome. T. Kuro says, this is such an awesome paint job. And I agree. It's awesome. Now, if only I could get mine back so we could give some of them to you guys. But I really like it. It's really cool. Probably looks better in person. It always looks better in person. But it's this really cool metallic looking glossy paint job. And this is a splatter, and splatters are incredibly durable. I mean, insanely incredibly durable. So, like this is a powder that was developed for this Mini, and this is bomb-proof stuff. It's a Teflon-based powder coat. I found it because one of my favorite people on YouTube / artists is Jonathan Ward. He's the owner of Icon, and he builds or restores classic vehicles, off-road vehicles mostly, but some not off-road vehicles. And his style is just incredible. It's such an inspiration. But he does his vehicles in Teflon-based powder coats, and they're all really awesome. So check out his channel. I mean, it's if you like cars and my kind of taste, I guess, this kind of taste, then you will love his channel. I basically just try to copy him every chance I get. This computer case, by the way, is Compact's case, and I can't wait to work on it, but I'm so bottlenecked right now because of the power supply situation at HDplex. I was supposed to get in my replacement power supplies today, actually maybe on Friday, and I didn't get a tracking number, so I'm hoping everything's well over there because I got lots and lots of stuff to build and do, and this is like a small fraction of it. I mean, I got projects for days I gotta get done, but I'm waiting on power supplies. Phil Schuffner says just get a G Unique, and G Unique, like I said, Gary is my favorite modder. He makes awesome power supplies, but you can't just go get a G Unique. I mean, it's very difficult to get one. So that's why I'm. But yeah, they make great stuff. He makes great stuff. Yeah, Jesse says, I wish there were more mainstream ITX motherboards with 10 gigabit Ethernet. And unfortunately, your only option right now, I think, is the ASRock X299 or X99 and X299 that I know about. I mean, there's some server motherboards you can get, but then you don't get all the cool stuff for a mainstream board like you put out. Sean Kreese asks about tempered glass side panel, and there's no chance of me doing that. None. I've already looked into it. It's just not going to happen. Plus, just if for lots of different reasons. I hate the look. I mean, I love tempered glass. It's a beautiful material, but you'd have to space it out so far in order for the computer case to breathe that you're just losing at least an inch of space that could be put to use. So it's not going to work for the Mini. I do have a couple custom projects, like on the front page of my website, where one of them is going to be using tempered glass, but that's actually from like a glass window. But making tempered glass, I mean, tempered glass is tempered glass because it's impossible to like actually cut it when you're said and done. I mean, there's like 2 companies that said they could do it, and once I submitted the sky slots, they're like, no. Oh man, there was a guy that said that he painted his Mini in a black lacquer and used sparkles for it, and that sounds amazing. Siegfried asks, any chance for dust filters, or do those affect thermal performance? And they destroy thermal performance. I'm against dust filters. This is controversial, but not as controversial as it was like 3 years ago. It was insane. That was like the biggest comment people had against cases. The reason I don't like dust filters, as somebody who's had them in my render machines back when I did that kind of stuff, is that they don't do anything. They collect a lot of dust, and you get a lot of really gross, dusty filters, but then you still get dust inside your computer case. It's less dust, but you're doing the same thing after all. You're going in, you're spraying out your computer case, and you're cleaning the dust filter, and then you're washing it down, and then you lay it out to dry. So it ends up being a big pain in the butt. You reduce your performance for sure, and then if you're a neat person like I am, you want to clean out the computer case too anyway. So I was like, this doesn't make sense for me. So that's why I'm against them. And sure, there's arguments for having them, but I just don't know. But what you can do for people that really, really want them is you can actually get custom laser cut magnetic tape that has a 3M adhesive on it. I forget who does this, but you can easily just Google it. And you can get a magnet cut for the Mini and then slap it in there, and then you can have the dust filter slapped on in there. So you can indeed have dust filters for the Mini. It's just that it will destroy thermal performance, and like I said, it's not going to do a heck of a lot. So Windfall asks, so Josh, do you know why people want the grounded power ports? Your Mini doesn't support it. Why not? Why go that route? Amazing question. Having the option for a ground is always better than not having an option for a ground, but you don't need it for the DC power supplies, that especially ones that are under 160 watts or 160 watts. I mean, you're not going to kill yourself on that worst case scenario, and it would require a massive failure on the DC power supply for that to happen. And if you look, why don't lamps have, they use, AC from the wall, and they don't have a ground on them. Like if you go buy like a desk lamp, it's just a straight standard plug. I mean, look at this Xbox connector, this Xbox power brick. This is 12 times 14. That's the wattage in this, and this only has 2 power plugs. So it's not necessary. Now, the reason that it became a problem is because we were talking about the 300 watt power supply and the 400 watt power supply, and they had a C14 connector, and people were like, okay, well, obviously it needs a ground, so why don't you have a ground? And then it blew up, and it said there was a guy that made some comments about why it's not safe to have it, and he was right for the application he was talking about. But if you use the C8 connector, a 2-pin connector, for the applications that I originally made this for, it's fine. So now, if I were doing it, I would definitely make it a little bit bigger and use the Clover one, just so people have that option, so you don't freak people out. So then in an internal 400 watt situation with the new HDPlex, is it going to be needed? It just depends on how the power supply is made. That would be my answer. That's the best kind of answer I can give regarding that. At 400 watts, you probably want an earth. So, in case something does go wrong, and it would have to go catastrophically wrong because they're sealed power supplies. But, so it just depends on how it's made. But that's why we have things like the C16, we have the banana plugs, we have the XT90 connectors that Gary has. There's lots of different options out there. So you can, I would definitely make, if you have the space for it, a little bit more room on the back for your computer case that you're working on. I would do so if I had a little bit more room. And in my next revision, I will add it. But I buy these things 1,000 at a time. It's going to take me a long time to sell all those, so I can't just make a quick revision. Phil Schuffner says, do you still make the S4 Mini Classic 3D bezels? I'm getting bored of my wood one. No, they're limited edition also. I have 3 left, and they're all mahogany. Sorry. Embellis asks, was the S5 that thing you were working on around May? No, that was a long time ago. I made the S5 and produced a 3 prototypes well before the S4 was even designed, the S4 Mini. So that was quite some time ago. And Sean, you were asking about the HD Plex 400 AC/DC, and you're asking about the external enclosures, but I don't know anything about the internal ones. Like, I do not know why it's, like I said, I was supposed to have one today. I don't know what's going on. So hopefully things are not backed up too badly. As far as making an external, oh yeah, you were working on that external enclosure for it, like the extrude heatsink, but I don't think it's gonna need, I'm not gonna speculate. Obviously it's not ready to even be released yet, so maybe there's another problem. But you can, in theory, I've seen the casing, attach a fan to it and wire it internally, so you should be able just to use it externally. And I've been making these cables. My last live stream I talked about it, but you can make your own custom cables, so I'm going to make a kit for that to swap them out. So you can use it as an external brick if you want. And if you want to make a cooler case, that'd be awesome. Winful says, I can't find the S5M thread anywhere. You can't find the S5 thread anywhere. There's not a thread, but I'm trying to think if the guy's username that has one, and he posted some pictures of it. Very stealthy-like. If it comes to me, I'll let you guys know. And Bella says, I'd go with the in-case for water cooling or FD's Fractal Designs Nano S. And yeah, I totally would do in-case for water cooling. I mean, I think that's its niche. You have pretty much the smallest possible computer chassis layout and have liquid cooling that actually works. Because you can do smaller liquid cooling, but you're not really getting a benefit from it. So, definitely. Like, this is another thing too. Again, I make these computer cases because I love them and I make them pretty much for myself. This is not where I make the money in my business. It would be much more profitable not to make these computer cases. So I don't consider in-case a competition or a Dan case competition. I just don't try to compete with them. So I have no problem recommending products that I think are good. I know people might think I'm biased. I'm only biased against people that knock off the Mini, do a bad job. But I'm all for the in-case and the Dan case. Humanly Robotics says, I snagged a 500 watt G-Unique power supply and I'm concerned about it not being properly grounded. Could it be dangerous? Is the power going through the 24 pin connector fatal? No. So you are, well, firstly, his products are not certified. They're not UL tested. I do not want to say on my channel his power supplies are safe because I do not want to be sued. Okay? I look at Gary's product. He's a modder and he's one of the greatest modders out there and my favorite modder. But his power supplies are still handmade and he doesn't have certifications. I'm not saying they're not safe. I think that they are. I mean, heck, you've seen the stuff that I do. But I can't say that it's safe. But in theory, it's safe because the power that's going to really, really, really kill you is the power supply in the brick, and that's plugged into your wall, and that should be grounded. Pretty sure that mine have all been grounded. The power coming out of it is DC power at that point, and it's grounded through the brick. And you're not going to kill yourself on the DC-DC distributor. If so, I'd be dead by now for sure. That's almost a guarantee. If you go back and look at my earlier modding videos, not these live streams, but like way back on my channel, where I'm like cutting into the Pico power supply and overloading them with 400 watt juice and melting the wires, pushing it to that point, no, you should be good. I haven't taken a really good look at the Dan KC4. I've been really, really, really busy. But if Dan made it, it's probably great. So that's my answer there. MVO says my HDPlex 400 will not power up intermittently. I have to unplug the power brick and plug it back in before it powers up. Any ideas? That is a known issue with working HDPlex 400 DC-DC units. It's fixed in the brand newest revision, which is not released yet, and I don't have it to test it, but Larry confirmed that is fixed. So unfortunately, you will have to unplug your power brick on some of those older models. Sean, you asked a good question, but I'm not quite sure what the first part of the question was. I don't know what we're talking about, and there could be 3 different answers, so you have to rephrase that for me. Backyard Film says, Himmy, and yes, that's the only way to roll. What do you think about the Chimera Mach 1? Any hands-on time with it? I have not had any hands-on time with it, so I probably should not say. I will say this about computer cases in general, and this has nothing to do with them. I do not want you guys to think that I'm implying anything, but you can make a computer look amazing in a render. But to get the final thing, not just a prototype, but the final thing that you order and get from the manufacturer, that's a completely different story. And that's been the hardest struggle I have had personally. So I try not to talk about things like quality until I've actually seen the in-game product. Because my prototypes were also epic, but then when I first started getting them from the manufacturer, they were crappy. In fact, there's 2 versions of the S4 Classic, and they're identical except for manufacturing flaws. So, yeah, there you have that. And I had to throw out so much inventory because I wanted perfect stuff. Tumor says, sup Josh, and donates $2 to my channel. Or that might be Australian dollars? I don't know. But either way, thank you very much. I really appreciate your support. Voka Iholic says, can you put 2 HD plexes for the Eurocom 780? You could, absolutely, but you probably, if you really need that kind of power, you would use the Dynamo 360, which I can grab one and show you right now. Where is my Dynamo 360? So the HDPlex 400 is good for 99 and 1080 Ti. I know because I built several of those systems now, and they work fantastic. This is an old one, or maybe it's a new one? Is this a new one or an old one, Craig, if you ever watched this? That's sexy. It's black instead of white. But this is the Dynamo 360, and this allows you to have 2 DC sources, which is epic, but also you can output DC to another DC-DC distributor. So you could have like an HDPlex 160 for your motherboard if you wanted to, or an HDPlex 400 if you wanted to, and actually output power through this to your graphics card for like a total of, I don't know, I think he claims like 780 watts of power, but that would be a good match if you really needed all that power for your build, which I'm pretty sure you don't. If you can use that much power, please send me an email. I want to know what you're up to, because it sounds interesting. Weston Means gives me $5 and says, love your channel. Amazed that it's only 23K subs. You deserve much more. And I really appreciate that compliment. I have no idea why these live streams work because I'm such a bad performer. But I really appreciate you guys chilling out, and I really enjoy that part of it. And I want to make more high quality content. And if this is the first thing you've ever seen, I make actual produced videos of me building mods, and I put a lot of work into them. So this is nothing like the quality of those. So go watch those if you like more storytelling and sparks flying. Brandon donates $10 and says, here's something for shipping that case. Is the least I can do. Thank you very much, Brandon. I really appreciate that. Tom Brown says, Josh, have you heard this Pico power supply from eBay? That's all I'm going to read. Do not buy any DC-DC power supplies from eBay. I've bought so many from there trying to find new interesting products, and it's always a mess. And I have a bucket of them down there. Don't do it. That's something that I can't recommend because you can end up burning a hole somewhere. But to read it, I really will read it. The 1624 wide input, 300 watt high power, the 24 pin, so it's a Pico DC-DC. I've seen several of those types of power supplies, and I've not found one that I would say is reliable. So stay away from that. Buy HD Plex, G Unique, or Mini Box if the power supply works for you. And I really recommend the Mini Box because they're the originators in the field, and I like supporting them. Once you can't use their power supply anymore because they're super stubborn and won't make things that I tell them to make, then buy other people's products. Tom Brown says, where should I get an affordable Pico power supply from? Depends on what you want to do. But again, the Mini Box, so mini-box.com, Pico power supply 160XT kit is awesome if you don't need a heck of a lot of GPU power. If you do, go to my website, and it's nfc-systems.com/BOMS, and I have different builds, and it shows you different power supplies that you need for each build. So that's what I would recommend. eCube says, Josh will be selling C8 connectors wired to work with HDPlex DC on your site. I did, but Larry said that he's going to include them in all future power supply packages. So I stopped being able to purchase them from him because he's going to include them. So I'm not going to be including them anymore because I actually don't know where to get the connectors from, and it takes a lot. I do everything by hand. Everything you buy on my website, I make by hand. So I can't spend time doing that if he's just going to include them anyway. Tom Brown, you need the HDPlex 160 for that build, really, I think. But the good news is that you can buy one of the cheap Dell Power Bricks that you can buy off Amazon for like $60, because that will work. Like the DA330PM111, that will work fine for a 1060 build. But it's always nice to get a good brick to start with in case you upgrade later. In that case, I recommend the LA330PM160, which off the Dell website is $160. But it's a great power brick, and it can power a 1080 Ti. I wouldn't recommend it, but that's showing you your 1060 is going to be okay. Josh, convince HDPlex to sleeve their power supplies. You do not want that. Okay, so you do not want that for sure. You want a professional to sleeve their power supplies. So go to Eventum Sleeving, or even Cable Mod, Mod 1. Go to a professional on the Small Form Factor website and have it done properly. Bad sleeving is worse than no sleeving by far. And they were. HDPlex power supplies sleeving, they start off being sleeved. Trust me, you do not want that. It was horrible. I convinced them to not sleeve their power supplies. Yet CT, thank you very much for the compliment. I really appreciate it. Sean Crees asks, do you still have a normal job to pay the bills, or do you only build PCs and accessories for people now? I am super, super lucky in that I now do this full time. I do a lot of different types of work, but I do computer work in my office. I work for myself. It's awesome. The downsides are that you spend all your money in your business and you work all the time. But if your hobby is your business, it's great. And I really appreciate all my customers' support and people like you who are watching this, because I would not be here without your help. So thank you very much. Tom Brown asks, do I sell my cases different colors? No, I don't. If you watched the video earlier, which you shouldn't because this is very boring, I don't for reasons anymore. But you can get them painted very easily. The panels are set up to be able to be painted simply. I just got a chat for $20, and I need to read the name off of it because that's important. But it went up. Humanly Robotics says, I know you want to be on the bleeding edge of small form factor, but I heard you were helping Gary make a 3 PCIe slot 7-liter case. I'll be checking that out too. If so, I'm hopping off. Thanks for chatting with us, Josh. Thank you very, very much for your generous donation, and I am anxious to see how that project works out. Because they're using some of the stuff that I've come up with, like the patent for one. I don't know how it's going to work out, but the power supply they're working on is great. It's really interesting for me because I want to see Gary make a certified power supply that can be sold all over the world. So I'm keeping a strong eye on that and inputting things where I can. Have you considered building an all-in-one type of computer, a nice monitor with a nice custom case as a stand? I worked on that with a company called Next Computing. You can check them out. Tom Brown says, would normal spray paint work, or do you use special paint? Any paint, this surface, this anodized surface, is the best possible surface for painting. Like, there's nothing better than this surface for painting. So any paint will work. Obviously, you have to have skill in painting to be able to get the result that you want. But yes, you can totally rattle can. I have rattle canned with some premium rattle can paint and gotten just amazing, amazing results. T. Kuro says, you've recommended the LA 330 PM160 before. Would you happen to know why Larry lists the DA 330 PM1 on NHP's website, or if Larry's listed brick is changing? I don't know the answer for that. Definitely 100% I am right on this. I have bought all the bricks in bulk and tested them all, and the LA 330 PM160 is the brick that you want, for sure, 100%. I think Larry was trying to show compatible bricks early on, and back then, people weren't sticking in 1080s and using his power supply, but I'm probably the number one use case for his power supplies, and you need beefier bricks now for those power supplies. Sia Humanly Robotic, and he definitely is working on certification along with Dan from SFF Lab on it, so I'm excited about it. Tom Brown says, not sure if you answered this, but do you sell your cases in the UK? How much is shipping? And thanks for so much for the information. This is amazing, and it's one of my favorite parts, and this is why I keep doing this. I sell to over 77 countries worldwide. It's amazing. I didn't even know there were that many countries. I mean, I'm joking, but I meet so many different people. Like, when people buy my computer case, they don't just buy my computer case and never talk to them again. They usually are saying, hi Josh, I love your computer case. I'm in Bulgaria, I'm in Lithuania, I'm in Congo. I've had customers from Congo and say, I love what you're doing and I can't wait to get to your computer case, and I have some computer questions. So I get to meet people from all around the world, and it's epic. I love it so much. If you're buying it in the UK, shipping is, I think, like $30. It's not expensive because right now I have the manufacturer drop ship to you. There's some drawbacks to that, but the bright side is it's less money to ship, which is what everyone was asking for. I just got a question about an S1 Mini with a GTX 1060 and where the temps were pretty good. I didn't get the first part of it because it cut off, but definitely go to my website, nfc-systems.com/BOMS, and you can check out my recommended builds, and it has a list of all the parts that go into them. And the 1060 build is like my favorite build. Not to worry, my battery died on my camera, and wow, those Micro Four Thirds batteries last a long time. I forgot it wasn't plugged in. So, we're back. And we are way, way, way over time. So, let's get some last couple questions in, and then we can say our goodbyes, and I can clean up this mess that I made. Any last minute questions? I hope next time I'll actually have a show planned where I can be doing something interesting. Well, I had a show planned for the day, I just didn't have the hardware, so. Sean Crees says, if I have a DA330 PM111 and want an LA3 MP160, any good options other than just buying a new one? It's a hit or miss. So you can go on eBay, you can try actually specifying for the OGT1 PM160, I believe is the secondary name for it, and see if you can pick yourself up the proper brick. But most of the case times, those are rejects. So it's probably worth it rather than spending $160 to try to buy it used first, but good luck. Tom asks, when is the next stream? I missed most of this one. I'm trying to stream at 5 o'clock Central Time on Mondays, 5 p.m., but I'm a disorganized mess. Weston says, I don't have any of your products, but I love your channel. I learn a lot, interested in modeling a case and having it manufactured myself. Thanks for the show. Yes, I am so happy that I can push you towards doing that. And I want to make a show where I talk about the... sorry, the camera's out of focus. We're about to end up anyway, and it's not autofocus. But I want to say I want to make a show about making your own computer case from start to finish and how that goes. Because there's a passion I have for that. I don't know why, because my passion wasn't to sell it. I don't want a business around this, but I just wanted to make it and bring it to production. So, got some good questions about a fan shroud from the hack, making a 3D printed shroud to reduce the temperatures. He sent me one of them, and I unfortunately never really got to test it. I was a really bad person. I feel really bad about that. I think I lost it. That's how bad I was about that. Maybe I answered his questions he sent to me. Do you know anything about the compact merge? I do, but you should talk to Compact Design about that. Okie dokie. So I am going to log off for now. And just in case I don't have cool stuff to do next week as far as the stream goes, if you are interested in knowing what it takes about making computer case from start to finish and getting it out to your customers, please send me questions for that via email, and I can start compiling them now. Otherwise, I'm just going to tell my story and how I got there, because I certainly don't have the best information in this area, but I can tell you about what it took for one guy that was working 3 different jobs to the minimum wage in order to make this happen from nothing. So, thank you very much, guys. I love you very much. Peace. God bless you, and I will see you next Monday around 5 p.m. Central Time. Google for my email. Peace.